Hey everybody, it's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. I finally have internet back, so we're podcasting. How's it going, Jeff?
I am in the desert of Twitterless online usage, and I'm handling it okay.
Yeah, it's a Twitter-free existence. I think there are probably 5 of us. I don't know all the people who joined on, but I know there are at least 3, and I think probably a couple more. No, 4. There are definitely 4 of us. Anyway, it doesn't matter how many. So you survived day 1.
I did, and other than just reflexively clicking on my phone where the Twitter app used to be a whole bunch, it's been pretty easy so far. I haven't missed Twitter as much as my muscles just actively trying to find Twitter on their own. It's like my body is searching it out while my mind screams, no, no, no.
I'm learning a lot about how I use Twitter because one of the things that I was trying to do was I was trying to give feedback to Ken Carmen and Anthony Lima during their show this morning. So that's the primary way in which I do that, and it's kind of cool. I actually get mentioned on the show sometimes because I know those guys, and when I weigh in on something, it gives me like that. I have that avenue or that venue.
You're a very important person.
I'm not that important, but it's like the equivalent. Remember the early days of Jim Rohn when people would fax? They would fax into the show, and then the host would read it.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, everybody likes to feel pretty, you know? Everybody likes to have
Yes.
a little bit of attention and stuff. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
But anyway, so off the top, I told you I finally have my internet back. And we lost it in the lightning storm. Nothing big, nothing worth talking about there. But when the dude was here fixing my cable, the cable internet, we were tracing a cable wire through my basement, which went through a suspended ceiling in one half of my basement. And I saw something up in the ceiling when he had the panel removed and he was making some changes to my cable. And so I jumped on the stepladder and I go up in the ceiling and I found mounted in the suspended ceiling by Velcro a Radio Shack device used to intercept landline telephone signals and record it to a tape recorder.
Oh my, that's pretty creepy.
Yeah.
Do you have a landline?
I don't, thank goodness.
Oh.
But the previous somebody who used to be in this house or somebody who knew the people in this house installed this device and was probably recording landline phone conversations.
And since it's Twitterless July, you couldn't even go on Twitter and in all caps write witch hunt.
I posted to Instagram.
Yeah, I did notice that. Like, I went on Facebook like really quickly today, and like somebody had posted a screenshot of a tweet, which people do on Facebook. I had like shared that. I'm like, this is pretty much just me retweeting this, just on a different. But let's go back to your weird stalkering thing. So, there's so many questions when you hear something like that. Like, were they trying to record somebody in the house? Did they do some important business that they needed their own calls recorded?
So I thought about that, and I wanted to go with that theory, but why would you hide it mounted in the suspended ceiling if it was just for legitimate business call recording, or you weren't trying to be covert?
That's very true. Somebody was trying to catch somebody cheating or something. You had like a real... It sounds like the people who lived there before you were much more interesting. Like they had like a whole spy thing going on.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think we're the 4th people to live here, so it could have been any number of previous owners. So
man, that's pretty cool. The only weird thing I found in my house is we found this old doll that was, I mean, it had to be from like the 50s or something, which is a very old doll, and it couldn't have looked more like something that would come to life in the middle of the night and kill you. It could not. So I would just hide it all around our house constantly in places where my wife wouldn't expect it, and then she would scream and run around and cry and throw it at me, but she would never throw it away. So I'd always find it and I would hide it all over. So that's the only fun thing I found in my house. Nothing as cool as the surveillance system for the people living in the house.
Dude, that gives me an idea. We need an Elf on the Shelf horror movie.
How does that not exist yet?
Like the first 3 days, I mean, earmuffs if you've got kids in the car, but like the first 3 days, the parents start hiding it, and then day 4, the husband thinks the wife moved it, and the wife thinks the husband moved it. Nobody moved it, but like Toonces, the driving cat, is dead.
What's sad is that would do bananas in the box office.
Oh,
That
it would
make
be
so much
amazing.
money. You shouldn't have said it on this podcast. You really kind of blew your $1 million idea there.
Nah, you know what? I dare anybody to make it. You can give all the ideas in the world. Most people won't execute on it, so it's up to us.
I wonder how much better the world would be if everybody who had a good idea like acted on it.
Oh, it would be so much better.
Like, how many good ideas do you come up with? You're like, that was pretty good, but I'm not actually going to go through the effort of doing that.
Yeah, there's too much fear of failure, but failure is sometimes something that you have to risk in order for some of the good ideas to make their way through.
A lot of times it's hard to know where to even start. There's not like an infrastructure of like, okay, this is your idea. These are the kind of things. These are the 5 first things you need to go do.
Yeah, well, and just because you know how to start a business or start a band or start a zine or a magazine doesn't mean that you know how to do a movie. You know, like you can't just apply your know-how from everything. There are some things that'll be applicable almost universally, but no, it's hard to figure out how to start things.
We've been off Twitter for 1 day, and we're already starting a movie, and look at how much more productive we are.
Was it like? Did you ever watch The State on MTV? So there was a bit. I think they gave up TV for a while, and the couple gave up TV, and then all of a sudden, like the husband starts walking around the house and looking at things, and then he's in the spice cabinet, and he goes, "Rosemary? Who knew that we had rosemary?" And the bit ends like, "Please, just go back to watching TV." So like, being off Twitter, you might now just annoy the piss out of your wife so badly she's gonna be like, just go back.
She's gonna download it on my phone for me. She's gonna like bait me. It's gonna be like entrapment. I'm gonna be sitting. I'm gonna open my phone. She's gonna be there, my timeline, staring at me.
So I don't think this is controversial, and I'm sure you're fine with it because you seem to have this kind of relationship. But she seems to be betting against you.
Oh, 100%. She calls it my mistress. She calls Twitter my mistress constantly, and she has no faith in me whatsoever.
So
I've been pretty good.
Are you like determined, or have you resigned yourself to the fact that you might fail?
I think I'm gonna do it to a point that I become a more healthy Twitter user. Will I last the full month? That is a question. The thing that is going to hurt me is that we have the baseball trade deadline and most likely some Cavs trades in between here. It was a bad month. It was a bad month to do this. Although there probably wasn't a good month, if we're being honest. I guess August or something. But that's what's going to hurt me is, there's going to be Kevin Love trade rumors, or we're going to be on the cusp of getting Machado or something, and it's going to be me sitting there holding my phone, sweating, trying to decide whether I can go back on it or not.
So we did find a couple of exceptions wherein looking at Twitter is acceptable, because I think ultimately what we're trying to do is break the cycle of behavior where you open it on your phone and you pull down to reload, scroll, pull down to reload, scroll, like pretending that something is happening when nothing is happening. But at the same time, there are things that exist on Twitter that don't get copied and pasted to blog websites. And so, like you said, at one point today in a web browser, you loaded Woj's feed just to see what had happened in the NBA. And I think that's totally acceptable.
Yeah, there's things like, he's reporting on all these minor deals, like an Anthony Tolliver or something. That's not going to make it to wherever I'm consuming my sports news, most likely. So it's easy to get a quick snapshot of what's going on. And it's not an unhealthy use of Twitter. I'm just looking at one person's feed to literally get news of what's happening, not even opinion. I'm just literally getting facts of what happened. So I thought that was okay. I cheated there.
No, I think that's fine. It's like, did you ever read or have you ever heard about the 4-hour work week?
No, but I like this.
So it's a book, and it's really just about being really really efficient and owning owning your work life. And one of the tactics, ideas, whatever behaviors that they suggest or embrace is, instead of just keeping your email box open all day long and being slave to the ping when a new message comes in, you should have 3 or 4 intervals during the day, or however many you need, where you check and work on your email and then close it again so that you can get other things done. Because otherwise, you'll be in the middle of writing a report and then ping, you'll get dragged away, or then you'll be making making a trade on the stock website, and ping, you get distracted by an email that pops in. And so not being slave to the notification, but slotting, all right, I check email for the first 20 minutes of every day, or first 30 minutes of every day, then I close it. I checked it for 30 minutes at lunchtime, and then I check it for 25 minutes at the end of the day, and just slotting it.
And that does make total sense. I'm the guy at work who has, 6 different Excel worksheets open and 3 drafts of emails and a browser with 2 articles that I was in the middle of reading. And none of them are actually getting accomplished. They're all at a snail's pace, and by the end of the day, they'll probably be done. But yeah, there's definitely some truth to that, because I fall into that trap all the time.
Oh, so where I was going with that is that I don't think either one of us are going to give up Twitter forever and ever. Amen. I just think that it's breaking the cycle with the app and using it in a fashion that doesn't make me miserable. Because that's really what it comes down to, is making me sad.
Oh yeah, and it's just constant, especially the LeBron stuff. It was worth following up until the decision, and I'm not like mad at him or sitting here weeping over it, but it was. I don't need to sit there and read every single rehashing of every single detail of it. And I thought a good example of this was everyone arguing about the banner coming down for like 48 straight hours. And that to me was just one of those news stories that it isn't really productive. It doesn't matter. Who cares? And sitting there dwelling on it and getting in 20 tweet threads arguing back and forth about it was just it's not brightening anybody's day kind of a thing. I'm not missing that by any means.
No, and that's one of the things too, is like, you didn't need to think about the banner. Nobody had any control about it. Your opinion didn't matter on it. I'm sorry for everybody who had an opinion or a strong opinion or a good idea. No good idea or opinion mattered. Nike controls that banner, and somebody else is going to control it going forward. And that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And they're wasting this much time. I've kind of felt the same way about people wanting to rehash the letter that LeBron wrote. Like, yeah, it was nice that he wrote that, but being mad about it now, it isn't getting us anywhere. We all knew within a year or two that what was in that letter was not written in stone and to be taken as gospel. So I just rehashing it now, it's just not getting us anywhere. It's one of those things that's water under the bridge. And if you're heard about it, be heard about it. But I just don't see any productive thing coming out of talking about it for another week.
I agree, because it was a moment in time. Those were his intentions in that moment. I think that I'd like to think that he believed it when he wrote it, and everything is fluid and moves from there.
Great. And a lot of things have changed. J.R. Smith hadn't thrown soup at anybody when he wrote that letter. A lot of things have changed. So I'm not going to fault the guy if things changed a little bit.
No, and of course David Griffin was still, there are all kinds of things, just all kinds of things, and he and Dan Gilbert had a working relationship for a certain period of time. But to think, the further away we get from it, and even without being on Twitter, doesn't it seem more and more obvious like that was what he was going to do all the time?
Oh yeah, and maybe if we had put together some incredible dynasty type team, that would change things. Maybe if Golden State never happened, it would change things. But it seems pretty clear that once things started to unravel a little bit, once it became clear, the Kevin Durant thing, I think, was certainly a nail in the coffin. Once it became clear that this wasn't a place that he was going to compete for championships every year, I didn't think he was just going to stick around for the sake of sticking around.
Yeah, it would be kind of a slow march toward retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you're more of an NBA guy than I am. I'm probably NFL first, probably then baseball. I don't know. And then LeBron has caused the NBA to be a much bigger part of my life than it probably ever will be again. But so how did you kind of take the DeMarcus Cousins and all the Warriors stuff now, especially now that we've gotten 3 or 4 days to kind of make come to terms with it? Because I'm
I
seeing
hate it.
all these national reporters going, well, he is coming back from an Achilles. Don't you guys realize he's coming back from an Achilles?
Yeah, it's strange how when anybody complains, on one hand, they're saying we should just enjoy the beautiful basketball. Don't you want to watch the best basketball? But then they're also on the other side making like excuses of why Golden State's not so dominant. It's like, well, which one is it? Should I be enjoying this beautiful basketball and not faulting anybody for wanting perfection, or are they this flawed team and none of these moves are actually good? It bothers me. I've always kind of been bothered by that, and I know that the NBA has always had dominance at the top, and if you look at TV ratings and stuff, it's what's good for the league. The league has a lot of casual fans who want to see the Jordan Bulls and the Kobe Lakers and the Durant and Curry Warriors. So I don't think it's ever going to change, but I really wish they would just step in and do something. I really think that they have max deals. If you got rid of max deals, I think it would go a long way towards spreading the talent around and also compensating guys in a fair way. LeBron should make way more than everybody else. So I wish they would do something like that. I don't think they're going to. It seems like if Golden State's not going to spur that on, then nothing's going to, right?
Yeah, the thing that bothers me about Golden State is not DeMarcus Cousins making a decision to play maybe a quarter of a season in the playoffs for 5.3 million. What bothers me is Kevin Durant giving money to Joe Lacob for no apparent reason whatsoever. Like that.
Yeah.
That part seems just there's no way that can be on the up and up. And I've people accuse me of being a conspiracy theorist, but I'll never buy that one.
And it bothers me when people use that as some kind of detriment to like Chris Paul or LeBron James. Like, oh, if they would take less, they could do this and this. Well, they shouldn't take less. These players, everybody loves to point their contracts like they're making too much money, but they're the reason that anybody's making money. People are paying to see LeBron James, and he should make as much money from that league as humanly possible. And for the players to give it back to compete just so that the owners don't have to pay so much luxury tax is kind of a gross thought. I don't like it.
Well, and it puts a feather in the cap of the argument that they are making too much money if they could afford to not take the most that they could possibly get.
Right. And I think they should grab every dollar that they can. Yeah, I don't think they should give up anything ever.
Yeah, I don't think so
it's
either.
Frustrating.
And I've given this example before, but the solution to me is blatantly obvious, and that's that the cap. Let's say the cap is 110 million. They need to change the cap league-wide to 100 million, and then how every team gets one player who does not apply to the cap whatsoever. And so all right, Dan Gilbert, you've got LeBron James. You can pay him 74 million, and
yeah,
and then that saves them all the luxury tax, or maybe there's a 10% luxury tax on that player over 40 million, or something like whatever. But my point is that way every team has one guy that they can just defy the salary cap to pay, as long as it's more than the max, more than 30 million. Because I'm already looking for ways people would try and cheat that system, but and that way you wouldn't have Kevin Durant and Steph Curry on the same team. You probably wouldn't have had Kevin Love and LeBron and Kyrie on the same team, or you would have had LeBron and Kyrie, and then Kyrie would have left because some other team would have made him their franchise guy.
No, I completely agree. And what would be cool about that is the stars should be making the most money. And I understand that the union tried, the max deals was to kind of spread the money around so that the middle tier and the lower tier would still get paid. But we've reached a point where the middle tier is vastly overpaid. And I'm not a guy who's against Tristan Thompson's contract. I think it was in the environment of the NBA and where they were at that time, it was fine. But if Tristan Thompson is making $20 million a year and the stars are making $30 million, well, clearly your system isn't working. He's not that close to those guys in terms of his impact. But in the current system with max deals, everybody else's deal gets inflated because LeBron can only make 30 million or whatever. He's making 35 this year.
Well,
So
and whatever
yes,
the structure is, the structure dictated that the Cavaliers had to pay Tristan Thompson and J.R. Smith basically whatever they wanted.
right. I don't fault them for those deals, but
No.
they were bad deals because of the entire pay structure of the NBA. And yeah, I absolutely agree. Let the stars make a huge amount of bank. Let the owners go above and beyond and pay taxes and all that stuff to keep those stars on their teams. But I always go back to this. I don't know if you remember, but when LeBron was here the first time, whenever he and Dwayne Wade would play each other, it would be this like insane shootout, and they would just try to show each other up, and they'd be coming down and shooting threes from all over and doing all these crazy moves, and like that was fun watching two stars just go at it one on one and just trying to outduel each other. And you just never have that anymore because it's super teams versus teams with nothing, and it just makes it a little bit less fun.
I think so too. And there's this huge contingent of national reporters and national commentators like, Jason McIntyre from the Big Lead is the one who always sticks out to me, where he's like, "What's the problem? All you people tell me this is bad for the league. I don't think it could be any better. Look at the TV ratings. Look at the excitement. Look at the entertainment value." And it's just like, I don't know where some of these people lost their way as fans, but like, if there's no incentive for 25 of the league's franchises to even care about anything but their building, and even then, what they're building has to be timed perfectly so as not to run into something else, some juggernaut. Like, what are we doing?
No, I completely agree. And I said this on Twitter the other day before I was kicked off, is that we get mad at teams for tanking as if there's any other option. All right, you've got Golden State with 4 all NBA players on their team. What are teams supposed to do? If you get 1 star and you start being good, how are you supposed to add 2 or 3 stars to that? The entire league is based around free agency, and if you're not if you don't have a top 5 player or you're not in a marquee market, you're not a player in free agency. So what are a lot of these teams supposed to do? I feel like people love to like mock the Wizards or the Blazers or a lot of these teams kind of in the middle. But I don't know what the other option is. They got really good players who aren't quite good enough to be the super duper star, and they tried to build around them. And this is what happens when you try to build around them. Pretty soon you get really expensive and you get maxed out. And
how pissed off would you be if your franchise had arguably the greatest player in the history of the game in Michael Jordan, and here on the other side of the country, Magic Johnson is doing work, and your guy apparently just as good a player as he was can't help you build a franchise the same way?
yeah, it's awful. The other thing that kind of drives me crazy is the second a team gets a good player, we start the clock on saying how bad they've been managed and how they need to trade that guy. Anthony Davis and Giannis Antetokounmpo are those guys right now. Or, oh, geez, their teams have had so many failures. They've screwed up so bad. They're not competing. They need to trade those guys to a team that will actually be good.
And there's a certain amount of NBA fans and commentators who are like complicit in them leaving.
Yes, and they cheer for it the entire time. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the Pelicans have made a lot of bad moves, but they've made a lot of good moves lately. And it stinks for Milwaukee that Jabari Parker tore his ACL twice, but that doesn't mean that everything they did was bad moves. And it always drives me crazy. Like the first time LeBron was here, the Cavaliers tried immediately to be good. They tried to do right by having LeBron and signed a bunch of free agents and tried to get a bunch of guys in to be good. And they were ridiculed for it because, of course, those didn't work out. They didn't let it build organically. They tried to be good as soon as possible because everybody told them they had to be good or they was going to go to New York. And then it all failed because they tried to build too quickly and tried to force it. And so everybody said he had to leave because it failed. And I feel like it's a no-win situation for a lot of these teams where the second they get a guy, they're supposed to start trying to be good. But when you try to be good immediately, it doesn't work out. And then everybody's telling you have to trade that guy because it didn't work out when you immediately try to skip in the head of the line. I hate that whole part of it. I love the NBA. I'm an NBA first guy, but I really wish they'd tweak some of those things, especially now with the new lottery rules. And we talked about this last week, is that it's going to be really hard to do a Thunder or a Philly and win a couple lotteries in a row to get a bunch of good players. So I don't really see a path for a lot of these teams anymore.
On top of that, I just from a overall league standpoint, I wonder what it is that they're going to be selling as time goes on, because it seems like they're thriving on selling the chaos and selling the dominance, but you can't sell that consistently because you can't keep amping it up. You can't keep adding to the Warriors. You can't keep adding to the dominance. You can't keep adding to the chaos because people will grow tired of it. It won't mean anything. It's like in WWE when they build to these crescendos and then they hit the crescendos and then they chill out for a little bit. And businesses need to think, especially entertainment businesses, even professional sports need to think in the same way. Like you can't. All right, we hit the crescendo. Now we've kind of plateaued. I have no idea where we go from here.
And I do wonder if 2016 and 2017 were kind of those crescendos. So the Warriors came into dominance, the Cavs beat them. So you had a dominant team that was, taken down, which is exciting for fans. And then you had the big free agent move with KD, and they proved to be as good as everybody thought. But now what? We all know how good they are, and KD moving was as big of a free agent move as will ever happen. So if Kawhi goes to LA, does it matter? Does it register anywhere if that happens? What do these free agency moves matter anymore? Do people still get excited for them?
I mean, it wouldn't shock me. I pretty much expected at this point. I assumed when they signed all those mediocre veterans that they were positioning themselves to trade a bunch of the young guys to bring in Kawhi.
Oh, probably. But I guess I mean from an excitement standpoint. Like, does the casual fan care about Kawhi going to LA that much? Is that exciting for people?
No.
I haven't. It doesn't seem like it's this huge buzz outside of NBA circles. Whereas I felt like Durant, the entire sports world was freaking out about that. Whereas Kawhi, it just is kind of like, okay, and he's a top 5 player joining the best player of all time in a major media market. If that's not gonna send complete and total shockwaves throughout the sports world, then yeah, I think the whole model is going to struggle to keep generating this level of excitement.
And meanwhile, baseball does not have a national fan base hardly at all anymore, and it seems they have the most parody-filled model at the moment. It feels like,
which is hilarious because you would think.
Because I used to scream and yell about the Yankees and the Red Sox outspending everybody.
Same, and they've gotten smarter. Before they didn't have to be smart because they could outspend everybody, and then some of these smaller teams started to be smart and catch up to them. And now the big market teams are smart and spending money, but there still seems to be a decent amount of parity, and they've found somewhat of a balance there. It seems. Now,
well,
we say that
money
now,
can only carry you so far. Over if everybody's smart. The problem is that the problem was that there were a lot of dumb teams and there were a lot of rich teams to take advantage of the dumb teams. If everybody's smart, then richness only carries you so far.
And I think that it's probably the least efficient free agency of the two sports that we talked about, of NBA and baseball. Free agency, you can buy some big name players, but they're normally later in their career. So when you're doing that, you're also buying a lot of bad years. So a lot of these teams that are spending a lot of money have a lot of junk on their roster too. The Indians are going to have Ramirez and Lindor mostly through their primes. So when you tear all the way down and rebuild, you have those guys for so long. I guess it changes a little bit. Where in the NBA, one superstar moves, and it's just such a seismic shift in the entire landscape of the league.
No, you're right, because Detroit is cursed with their future Hall of Famer, Miggy Cabrera. Anaheim, the Angels are cursed with their future Hall of Famer, Albert Pujols.
Right.
You're right. You buy so many bad years in Major League Baseball.
So have you come around to appreciating Miguel Cabrera yet, or do you still kind of hate him?
Oh,
I never hate sports hate,
Yeah, exactly. He still kind of grinds my gears just because he was such a killer against the Indians for so many years. It hasn't worn off yet. I consider him very similar to the way I used to think about Paul Pierce. Like, even when Paul Pierce was older and broken down, I still kind of sports hated him.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm starting to appreciate him, but I think it's completely because he is broken down and they're bad. Like, if they're still good, I don't know if I would be able to. But I look back now, and he was pretty funny. How he used to throw gum at guys when they're rounding third, and doing stupid stuff like that. Like, I feel like I can look back now and sort of appreciate him a little bit.
Yeah, I guess that's true. He certainly is a different character than Paul Pierce, but just in terms of the rivalry.
Right, where you always kind of are going to hate that guy. Sports hate's so fun.
It is. The biggest problem that I ever had, one of the biggest problems I ever had with the Indians was when they brought in Trot Nixon. Because I sports hated that guy so much. and now he's wearing the jersey. He's out there in right field. He's broken down and old. He's the worst version of Trot Nixon.
It's almost like he still was there to curse you. like being on your team. Like the leagues need to step in for that. Like I remember the Dolphins signed Thurman Thomas for a year, and Jason Taylor played for the Jets for a year. Like leagues need to step in and say like, no, neither fan base is enjoying this. Let's just step in and not let this happen.
I'm trying to think of a Browns example, but that's great. That's absolutely. I forgot that
Is
Thurman
it Hayden?
Thomas.
Is it Joe Hayden right now?
Oh, the league totally should have stepped in. I don't know how much different I would feel about Sashi Brown and the Sashi Wars if he hadn't traded, like, gave away Joe Hayden for nothing.
To the Steelers. I mean, he obviously didn't give him to the Steelers, but it's how it ended up. Yeah, it's just one of those things. There's a human element to all of this, and that was one that just never felt right.
Just like I was never, even though he wasn't the GM at the time, I don't think he was anyway, I was never going to forgive Mark Shapiro for trading Victor Martinez, ever.
Is that? I feel like that should be. We have like the shot and the drive, and all that. I feel like that, like him crying in the dugout after being traded, needs a name, because that might have been the most traumatic sports moment in Cleveland in a while. I feel like that one hurt people more than LeBron leaving this time, anything like that. Like that was rough.
Yeah, and it went above and beyond Cleveland sports fans, because even my wife, like, she started tearing up. She couldn't believe what she was seeing.
Right. That was about as emotional and as like awful as a sports moment can get. You don't see that. You don't see that side of it very often.
No, and that's one of the things that kind of sucks about baseball and baseball. The super fans, the analytics super fans, is that they will tell you that, well, the Indians got back a starter or a potential starter. It was a worthwhile trade. Victor's best years were behind him. And I think, look, I don't want to go all Yankee fan on you and start talking about intangibles of Scott Brocious, but like certain guys like Victor Martinez do have intangibles.
And that, I think, is the hardest thing with baseball, is that the Indians didn't want to trade Victor Martinez. They would have loved to have signed him, but you can't compete on the same level as other teams. In the other sports, with the caps and things like that, if a guy leaves, it's because the team either wanted him to leave or because he wanted to leave. And that was a situation where I'm sure the Indians didn't want to trade him. They would have loved to keep Victor around, but they knew they couldn't pay him what another team would. And that, I think, is what's hard about baseball. Like, if everything was equal, they would have paid him. He would have loved to have stayed. And the fact that he had to leave was just kind of not fair to either side.
And that trade never would have happened in the NBA because you would have needed salary matching.
Right, and we could have just offered him the same as anybody else, and he would have gladly taken it.
Yes. It's just, and the baseball, Major League Baseball had a salary cap agreed upon when they were locked out in '94, and then by the time Congress stepped in, the salary cap was decimated, and here we are. But
I'll never understand why TV revenue isn't shared across the league. To me, it's the dumbest thing in the world. You can't air a game in your local market without teams to play. Like that is it blows my mind that is something that stays. It makes even less sense than ticket revenue for me.
Yeah, well, and that was where the Indians were smart for a while, when they owned their own network, so that they were handing money from one hand straight into the other hand, that kind of a thing. I don't know the whole thing. I'm with you, but then the Yankees would be worth the same as the Indians would be worth the same as the Reds, and that's part of what they argue against, because it's like, if you had already bought the Yankees, how do you make up for the difference in asset value based on the TV contracts if we're all of a sudden going to start sharing that money?
Oh yeah, you can. It'd be impossible to do now, but it's
It'd be
one
impossible
of those things
to do now.
But it absolutely should have happened from the start. It's kind of like how all the newspapers gave all their content online for free, and clearly that was the wrong model. But once they started, there was no going back on it.
Yeah, they just expected those advertising revenues to show up, didn't they?
It just never. I mean, you made everybody pay for it to get it in physical form. Like, it just wasn't that hard to think, hey, maybe we shouldn't give this all away for free. But I guess
Yeah.
the ad model changed and stuff too.
Oh, all right. What else you got? What else are we talking about?
Do you think they should trade Kevin Love?
Um, there's the human side of me wants them to keep him forever and ever and ever, but the other part of me knows that it's the only smart thing to do, and I think it'd just be really. I don't know who they would trade him to, but I think it'd be really funny if they trade him to the Lakers.
Yeah, that would be really funny.
But I
I
don't know
mean, he
what
and
the
LeBron
Cavs
did
would
seem to
get
get
back.
better, seem to get along better this year than in years past. But
LeBron sure could use him now.
yeah, it's very true. I am kind of the opinion that we're going to be so bad that we're not a Kevin Love away from not being a top 5 pick, so it doesn't really matter. If he wants out, trade him, do right by him, because he was a good soldier. But if he wants to stick around and rehab his trade value and revisit at the deadline, I'm pretty okay with that too.
Well, and it might be the best way to garner the most value for him is to wait until the trade deadline.
Yeah, and he might, he might appreciate that. He's been stuck around the 3-point line, not doing much for a couple of years. Maybe he wants a chance to just go out and show what he can do again to prove a lot of people wrong. Or not people wrong, but just prove his worth. Sorry, I'm totally anti the word haters, and I almost used it there, so I had to catch myself.
Haters. Why are you anti the word haters?
I two things. First, I feel like it's just like a catch-all. Anytime somebody does something stupid, they just blame it on haters. And it just really bothers me. Like, no, you don't have haters. You're a jerk, and you just need to accept the fact that you did something dumb and stop talking about haters.
Are we talking about Amin Al Hassan?
Oh, he's one. But my other thing with haters,
He thinks being a hater is his brand, and that like makes it okay. Like, no, dude, you're just a jerk.
right? That's exactly right. Like, people just want to blame all of their behaviors on haters or all of that kind of stuff, and they want to just wash away anything that they did wrong or make themselves sound valiant. Like they're only being a jerk because of their haters. Like it's actually a good attribute or something. I don't understand it.
And Amin Al Hassan, he'd always be like, "What? You're not familiar with the hate hard train or something like that?" I'm like,
Right.
"No, I'm not familiar with
No,
the
you
hate
have the
hard."
dumbest brand ever. But my other thing with haters, and this is something I love about LeBron, is I feel like a lot of athletes and just a lot of people do something good and say it was just to prove the haters were wrong. And I think that's like the saddest thing in the world. Like, the only reason you want to do good things is to like prove some imaginary hater guy wrong. And so I've always appreciated that LeBron kind of just wanted to be great for the sake of greatness. And I think that's something that's kind of missing a lot
Although
anymore.
I will say that I've said that LeBron James off the court and what he's doing, he's unassailable. You cannot criticize him. But I did kind of feel a little bit like, really, when the third post on his Instagram story about going to LA was "Thank you Northeast Ohio," blah 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 blah. Oh, by the way, did you know I'm opening a school? Let me tell you, I'm opening a school. I want to remind you, I'm opening a school. By the way, it's for the Boys and Girls Club of Connecticut. Do I need to remind you that the decision was for charity?
And his first public appearance is going to be for that school, I believe, right?
Yeah,
which
the
is
LeBron James
which
Family
is
Foundation.
the awesome thing he's doing. I'm not criticizing him for doing that at all, but it certainly is a convenient first appearance to kind of avoid any questions or anything like that, because nobody's going to hit you too hard when you're opening an entire school. I mean, I feel dumb even trying to criticize him for it.
He's unassailable, but like if I'm picking nits,
it's kind of like when NBA players were all bringing their kids to the post-game conferences.
yeah.
And it's like, yes, your kids are cute. And like, I love seeing the interaction, and it's
Brian
fun. But
Windhurst was like, enough. We get it. Stop it. You're ruining the post-game press conference. I'm trying to work here.
right, and like he's not wrong. Like they need to ask hard questions and they need to get reactions. And if some kid is grabbing the mic and I mean, we all have, you and I both have kids. There's no way I could answer a bunch of questions with decent answers and keep my kid off the microphone and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't disagree with them there, but it's kind of like that.
I use my kid to cover for me in situations in stores when I run into somebody I don't want to talk to.
Of course, that's the best part of having kids. That and getting chicken fingers again.
He's got to go to the bathroom. We're going to use the bathroom. You know, get me away from you, adult I don't like.
It's the same thing, right? Like, yes, I'm the jerk who's criticizing this great moment with his dad and his kid, but it's also pretty clearly ulterior motive here of having to avoid an awkward situation.
Yeah. So I mean, but LeBron is basically unassailable. But I was kind of like, really? It was a little bit. It was a little bit crass. I thought a slight bit crass.
Yes,
Is that okay? Am I allowed to say that?
yes. I do think it's funny too how we're in this situation with LeBron that no other team with a free agent leaving has ever been in. We're like, if we handled 2010 so poorly, and I know there's a lot of reasons for it, but we still didn't do great.
No, we didn't.
But we handled it so poorly that we cannot have even like 1 second of criticism hit the airwaves of LeBron. Like, we're all trying so hard to like.
Dude, I buried it 40 minutes into this podcast.
But right, like, we all feel like we can't say a single bad thing about LeBron because we handled it so poorly, and everybody's just kind of waiting for us to have that little crack that they can come in and go, I see it.
Well, and he's undeniably like done a great thing. He's undeniably done great things.
Right.
And so you just can't. Yeah, you just can't get away with it. You just can't get away with it. But then again, I also, before I was off Twitter, and I think we talked about this, that thing where you pretend like you're going to burn the jersey and then you drop a thank you note on top of it in a video.
Yes.
Some things are just over the top and embarrassing. And I was a little bit embarrassed for LeBron when he, like, the third pane was of his story was like bragging about his school. Like, it's cool. I'm happy he's doing the school. It's one of the most honorable things you can do with your fortune, I think, is to give it back. But to hide behind it when you're making a really unpopular local decision is kind of an interesting choice.
Not now, bro. Right?
Not now, bro.
That's what I would say to LeBron, clearly.
All right.
I've got one more thing.
Okay.
I've got one more thing. Do you want to trade for Machado? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. It's an interesting question. I think I do. Yes, I want to trade for him.
I can't get there. Like, seeing what we'd have to give up. I think I got spoiled with Lindor, where it's like, now I remember what it's like to like have a homegrown star, and Jose Ramirez too. There was like this guy who's just completely franchise altering. And I'm not saying, any of the prospects we'd give up would be that, but it makes me a little bit more reluctant to do it. And I also just don't know that I'm a big proponent in baseball of turning a weakness into a strength rather than turning something that's okay into a strength. And I'm worried that that's the best use of resources. And I feel like crazy for saying that. Like, who wouldn't want to add him to their team?
I think he's the difference because he pushes Jason Kipnis out. And he does become the difference because it's not about upgrading third base. It's about upgrading the team to the point that you push another weakness out.
So what do they do with Kipnis?
I don't care. I don't hate Jason Kipnis. I want nothing more than for him to be the all-star that he once was, but he's not, and he's not going to be.
Yeah, I really thought he was going to break out this year, I'll be honest. And he has been bad. I mean, he's been better the last month or so. So, maybe he can turn into an average player again. But
and then again, I don't know the chemistry in the clubhouse and how all that stuff works, but just from what I can see, and what I know about the trends of baseball careers, I just can't bet on the 31-year-old guy. I just can't.
No, I totally get that. And I wouldn't be upset if they'd made that move. It's one of those that scares me a little bit. Baseball going all in on 1 year is just really scary. And it's hard because you don't know, it's baseball. You're one play away from winning the World Series or losing in the first round, it seems like half the time. So, maybe he's the guy who makes a difference, but it also feels like it's just so much luck. It's hard to know when to go all in and go big for one single year.
Yeah, we're in that window. We still have Jose Ramirez. We've paid the money for Encarnacion. It just feels like if I'm running the Indians, I'm going, all right, we're here. I'm gonna I'm gonna do the best I can to try and send the prospects I want to send. But yeah, I'm gonna make that move.
Yeah, and I guess it makes sense with you look at the age of Kluber and Carrasco and Encarnacion, and you look at how much longer you have Lindor, and maybe this win. The fact is Zimmer isn't turning into a superstar kind of level guy, and they're scared of Yandy Diaz. He must be like a ghost or something to them. It doesn't. Maybe it's time to go all in on this core because it's not going to be around forever, and it doesn't look like there's another wave of guys that are going to keep us at this level. So maybe it is time to go. Yeah, you talked me into it. Look at
And
that.
so he makes $16 million this year, and then he's a free agent.
Yeah,
So that really plays to your advantage too, because you are renting him. And there will be some competition for him in that trade market, but it's still not going to be as much as you would pay if he had 3 more years left on his deal.
right. Right.
And then the Indians get to what? If he goes and signs somewhere else, they get a compensation pick?
I think so. Even if it's a mid-year pickup, right?
I think so too. So, I mean, not that that's what you're playing for. Right? You're playing for his half a year of on-field production and playoff production, hopefully. So,
And it is incredible. I thought when they added those compensation picks, it wouldn't change anything, but that has turned into a nice little thing that teams get when people leave.
yeah. So, yeah, I would do it.
All right, you talked me into it.
Set up a Twitter poll, and oh, wait, never mind.
I was going to say, I feel like when we sign off here, I'm not going to talk to you for a week because there's no Twitter anymore.
I'll see you on the gram. All right, everybody. I hope you guys had a really nice 4th of July. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. It's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.